Public Nemesis Media.
On 6th of April 1941, the Axis powers have invaded the Kingdom of Yugoslavia, which was soon torn into pieces. While some territories were annexed to neighboring countries, a couple of Yugoslav areas turned into fascist puppet states. This area was known as the territory of the military commander in Serbia and was placed under a military government of occupation by the Wehrmacht. The Nazi military commander appointed two fascist puppet governments, first one being the short-lived commissioner government led by Milan Achimovic, and the second one being the government of national salvation led by Milan Nedic. Both the Nazi occupation and the traitorous collaborators were very unpopular among Serbs, so they decided to show the Serbs that their cause was noble. In order to do that, they opened the Grand Anti-Masonic exhibition on October 22nd, 1941, which lasted until January 19th, 1942. It was basically an exhibition of Nazi propaganda financed by the Nazis, and many posters were saved to this day. Those posters, which had the goal to spread the Nazi ideology, are the subject of this video. Now, considering how controversial the subject is, I have to tell you right now that 1. This is an educational video that wants to show how Nazis spread their propaganda and the dreadful ideology, and 2. I'm not a supporter of the Nazis. On the contrary, I have enough brain cells and historical knowledge to know that their ideology is hateful and the cause of a lot of suffering and deaths. But it's also nonsensical, and I will show through their posters just how delusional the Nazis were. Also, if you need me, a stranger from the internet, to tell you that Nazism is bad, get help. Let's get started with Nazi propaganda in occupied Belgrade. One of the main characteristics of fascism is the us versus them narrative. As you can already guess, there are different groups of people demonized by the Nazi posters from the exhibition, and I have divided them into 3 categories in order to make this video more presentable rather than showing posters randomly, which can make the video look like a mess. The first category deals with anti-English propaganda. "This is England. Are the Englishmen friends of small nations?" says this poster. I don't know if it's just me, but adding Grim Reapers next to your enemies only makes your enemies look more badass. Anyways, most of the anti-English propaganda revolves around showing the English as enemies of smaller nations. Here's one that cynically states, "Rule Britain." Then there's one that says, "English promises, equality, brotherhood, freedom. English reality, inequality, hatred, slavery." Also, it says bank here because Churchill was controlling banks or something. Speaking of Churchill, here's him offering an agreement that during peace we give him our riches and during war our lives. I'm aware that it's ironic that such accusations come from the freaking Nazis, but there are more ridiculous posters. This one curses you with the words, "May mother's milk poison you, cause you had faith in the English." Imagine making a propaganda poster directed at babies. Like, "What's that, little fella? You like the English? Well, I hope your mother poisons you with her milk." Another poster that makes no sense is this one, showing an Englishman smoking cigars, drinking some luxury beverage, and there's also a large bag of money. If this is supposed to make the English look bad, it failed miserably. Just like with the Grim Reaper poster, this only made the English look more badass. Who wouldn't like a life like that? Finally, here's one that says, "Kiss from an English Juda." I have no clue what this is about, like, why a kiss? I guess it is just a typical Jews are bad Nazi BS. There is a series of anti-Jewish posters without mentioning anything or anyone English. But before we get to those, let's talk about the second category, which deals with anti-communist propaganda. Some of these aren't so crazy. There are posters showing Stalin and Tito in a bad light. A couple have the slogan "Death to Bolshevism," and this one that claims that the plague was finally removed has simply aged like milk. I will admit that this poster made me chuckle a little. The text on the bottom is actually a conversation between these two communists. Communist number 1 asks, "Ivan, what do you think? How are things stand?" Communist number 2 replies, "I think we were born under an unlucky star." It's a little bit funny, I admit.
I'm just saying credit where credit is due.
I guess the very little intelligence that Nazis had all went into making this because, good God, no sane human being can make something like this. So this is a curtain with the words democracy on it, and this man is pulling that curtain in order to show the bloodthirsty communist behind it. Down below it states, "Democracy, the predecessor of communism." Democracy leads to communism. Oh yeah, all those socialist countries were peak democracies. Both Tito and Stalin maintained a fair democratic system. Heck, the most democratic country in the world is North Korea. I mean, its official name is literally the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. The poster becomes even more nonsensical when you get to see this poster titled "The Naivety of a Democrat." The Democrat tells the communist with an axe, "Bro, you don't want to do that to me. I'm a Democrat, a good Serb. I thought that democracy and communism went hand in hand. Now I'm told that communists will kill Democrats." I also forgot to mention that, although not a communist, Draža Mihailović, the leader of the royalist Serb army called the Chetniks, is also attacked by a few posters. There are discussions on whether Mihailović was a fascist collaborator or not, and I'm not saying he wasn't. I just find it odd that fascists would vilify their ally. Or maybe he wasn't an ally at that point in time. I don't know. Back to communism. One of the bigger propagandas from the Nazis is, "Actually, we're defending you guys from the Bolsheviks. We're defending Europe." I'm not gonna talk about this much because it will be an entire separate video. Stay tuned for that one. Then there's this one that says, "Die, Russian people. Stalin is pushing you into death so you can save the Jews." Yet another contradiction from the Nazis is, "I hate the Bolsheviks from the bottom of my soul, yet I feel empathy for them because they are saving the Jews. They won't allow me to destroy the Jewish race, those poor bastards." Another poster featuring Stalin is him telling Churchill and Roosevelt that he dissolved the Comintern at their request, whatever that's supposed to mean. And down here are some people, I assume the Judeo-Bolsheviks, with a plan to Bolshevize, if that's a real word, England and America. That leads us to category number 3, which is anti-Jewish propaganda. The anti-Jewish claims can be summarized with, "Source, dude, trust me." Some posters are just Serbian versions of more well-known Nazi posters. Some are minimalistic in their message, vaguely warning you how the Jews are coming, and then come the "everything I don't like is a Jewish plot." Communism? Jewish plot. Communism and plutocracy? Jewish plot. Communism, capitalism, democracy, and masonry? Jewish plot. There's 3 different versions of posters with that last message, and I'm supposed to believe that both capitalism and communism are Jewish? Is the entire Cold War just a bunch of Jews fighting each other? Also, can someone please explain to me why in God's name would these super rich Jews want to implement Bolshevism? Like, how can plutocratic Bolshevism even be a thing?
What in God's holy name are you blathering about?
While we're on that topic, here's a poster that states that 98% of US finances is in Jewish hands. Not sure who the other 2% are supposed to be, when there's another poster that shows how a Jew is keeping the world's fortune in his gigantic safe. Man, if Jews are controlling money, I guess we should just completely abolish money. Hey, maybe the communists are onto something when they want to create a moneyless world. Wait, that's right. Communism is also controlled by Jews. Never mind. On a similar note, here's a poster that states how 97% of newspapers in the US are in Jewish hands, but just like with the finances posters, the Nazis never stated where they got that information from.
Mind showing us these statistics that you so painstakingly researched, or are you just pulling these facts out of your butt?
Finally, we'll talk about the "Everyone I Don't Like is a Jewish Puppet." This poster depicts Stalin and Churchill as quite literally puppets of the Jew. This was because the UK allied itself with the USSR following the Third Reich's invasion of the USSR. Is it because the Nazis were bombing the living hell out of them? Nah, it's because they were both controlled by the Jews. It gets even more ridiculous with this one, where Churchill, Stalin, Mikhailovich and Tito are all painted as Jewish puppets. And it was probably painted by a 5-year-old child. I mean, this is kindergarten levels of drawing skills. Here's another poster with those 4 men portrayed as servants of the Jew, but this time with Uncle Sam. Like, Uncle Sam isn't even a real person, and yet he's a Jewish puppet. Those Jews sure are powerful. It really makes me think, why would the Nazis make propaganda films showing Jews as poor and dirty and living in ghettos? If they controlled everything, you'd think they'd be able to live like an Englishman. The final poster I'll show is the most nonsensical yet. It's a poster with many cut trees and a text that says, "Through this forest have passed the Jews." I guess cutting trees is a Jewish plot? Why trees again? What do trees have to do with anything? What's the message of this poster? You know what? It's my fault that I'm trying to find some sense in all of this when clearly there isn't any. Fortunately, I couldn't find any information that the exhibition had any success. Fascism was still very unpopular among Serbs. Seeing these posters made me see the extent of how much disconnected from reality fascists were. I knew that before I saw the posters, but man, just think about how many people were killed over something that made no sense. Anyways, this has been a video on how Nazis have spread their propaganda and their brain-dead ideology. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Stay tuned for more content in the future. Goodbye.